Affirmative action, what is it? We talk about race-conscious policies like affirmative action, and their aim is really to address racial discrimination. We have 40 years of legal precedents around this issue of affirmative action. We have the Equal Protection Amendment, the 14th Amendment, that came from the Reconstructionist Congress, that said race should be a factor, not the only factor, but we can have race-conscious policies and laws in this country. And now the Supreme Court is saying, no, we're good. Like we've reached this era where race shouldn't matter. We've come over a hump of segregation and slavery, where now it's okay to not look at race as a factor, just eliminating decades and decades of historical data and stories of lived experiences of segregation and discrimination that still exists today. Colleges and universities have been using race as one factor in a multitude of factors in their admissions policies for decades. For nearly 50 years, the Supreme Court and lower courts have said that's fine. That is not a violation of the Constitution. Using race as one piece of the puzzle is fine. Equal Protection Amendment, it allows it. And all of a sudden, we have two Supreme Court cases that are here to really dismantle affirmative action. And the way they came about is two cases filed in 2014. The Students for Fair Admissions versus UNC Chapel Hill, and Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard University. And these were filed in 2014 by a well-known conservative legal activist who started this organization with the sole purpose of dismantling affirmative action. And these are the cases that the Supreme Court have decided to hear. The only thing the Supreme Court is supposed to do is to interpret the law to the facts presented to them and decide if there's a split decision somewhere in the lower courts, which there absolutely was not around affirmative action. Even though we're pushing and moving towards a multiracial democracy, race is still at issue, right? Discrimination still exists. And many people think getting into college should just be by your merits and nothing else. And we know that's not true. We don't live in a country where our past did not exist. We don't live in a country where slavery didn't exist, where schools, these institutions such as University of North Carolina and Harvard, did not historically discriminate against Black and brown people for decades, for centuries. So the idea that we have reached a point in our history where we can say race doesn't matter in our daily lives is just a lie. We have to think about what's next and the impact of that. I think we know what the immediate impacts will be. We'll certainly see a decrease in admissions for brown and Black students at select universities. We'll also see a decline in diversity in workforces because the pipeline has been shut off for brown and Black folk. We'll also see implications with government programs that provide grants and funding to increase the number of brown and Black folk in government agencies and in government programs and job creation programs, simply because there's a fear of this doctrine that affirmative action is unconstitutional, so they're no longer willing to do those programs. We'll also see implications possibly with K through 12 education, because we already know that our young people are facing discrimination in their schools. Segregation is at all-time high in schools again. And just those odds against kids already, we understand why race-conscious policies are important. It's for the next generation and the next generation. So I guess that begs this question, like, what do we do so we don't feel hopeless and like we can't do anything about this and we just wait to go back to Jim Crow era? But no, we can do things, and schools and universities can do things. Schools can still recruit and do outreach any way they want to. So they just need to be vigilant and strategic about the ways they do that and the communities they enter and who they're talking to. And that's going to be a real effort on their parts, and they have to have a real plan around that. I think most importantly is we need to continue uplifting the voices in the communities most impacted and hearing from various races and ethnicities to talk about what it means to have opportunities to thrive. We need to look at other admission policies like standardized testing. I know a lot of folks have been looking at getting rid of SATs and ACT scores, which have been shown to be discriminatory and have an impact against brown and Black communities. Many schools, many universities have done away with that. So continue to advocate for the removal of standardized testing is important. And also more holistic admission policies that are looking at socioeconomic factors, communities where folks come from is important. And finally, really looking at financial aid packages to make sure that they're equitable across communities and ensuring that young people who feel like they could never afford to go to college have even an inkling of an opportunity to do so and receive money to go to these institutes of higher learning and these more selective colleges where this affirmative action decision will mostly affect.